Okay. I now call to order the Lakeside Planning Commission meeting of May 1st, 2025 at, I guess, 6 p.m. still. Please stand. I got confused.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
So let's start with, does any of the commissioners have any changes to the agenda? Oh, roll call. Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at two different things and both of them are in different order. So roll call. Colin Higgins, thank you.
Carol Granzo present.
Sarah Coates present.
Randy Thomas present.
There we go. Okay. I gotta get my stuff in order here. Okay, so now, can we do changes to the agenda? I need to give the commissioner a second. No. Okay. And that's a no. So no changes to the agenda. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Second.
Okay, so that's a motion by Randy Thomas and seconded by Charlene Higgins. All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. And then we finally have gotten our February, thanks to sharing our February 2025 minutes. Did anybody get a chance to read them? Look them over?
I looked at them and looked fine.
Okay, so then anything that we want to bring up, or can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of
February 2025.
February 2025. Yeah. I second it.
Okay, so that's a motion made by Carl and seconded by Randy Thomas. All in favor? Aye, that's a unanimous aye. Okay. Public comments. Is anybody here to make a public comment to an item that's not on the agenda this evening? No, that's typical. Okay, no public comments. Moving on. Okay, so new business. We are needing to interview an applicant for the planning commission with a vote to deny or approve the application. We all have a list of questions. Has everybody reviewed her application? Okay, would you like to come up?
No.
Come up to the podium so we can ask you some questions.
Here.
Yeah, and please state your name, full, and where you live.
Tina King, and I live on Tierra Street.
We can pass the rest. Would you like to answer the first? That's the first one.
Don't get on. No, just tell me which one.
Just pick a question, any question.
Oh, you want to go ahead now?
Yeah, no, okay. You didn't have it. You have to go first.
Tell us briefly about yourself. Experience, expertise, and what aspects best describe your qualifications to serve on the city's planning commission? Tell you about myself. Born and raised in Reedsport. Married another person that was born and raised in Reedsport. Moved away, just moved back after being gone for 20 years. Chose to come back to Lakeside because I didn't like Reedsport anymore. Liked the little town, liked to see where it's going, like feeling the small neighborhood and the small community, people kind of going, hey, when you walk down the street, they seem to know you or want to know you. That's kind of nice, makes you feel sense of community. Haven't had that for 20 years. Lived in for 20 years was horrible. We won't go there. Expertise. Never served on any community government ever in my life, never wanted to until recently. And I started seeing Lakeside want to grow and change. And I thought I'd want to be part of that somehow or another. Have a background in healthcare, did that for 20 years. Decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. I currently work at a little thrift store there in Reedsport, which I see a few of my Lakeside people come in and visit once in a while. I see Sharon occasionally. It's kind of nice, and that's kind of a little sense of community there too, seeing people I know and recognize. I don't know what else to tell you.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Carl, do you want to ask a question?
Well, say something. I disagree completely with all these questions.
Make it unbiased.
Ask me anytime.
I'd like to have you expound a little bit more on
why you would like to be on the commission. I just like to say that why I don't like these things is because when I moved here to Lakeside,
Mhm.
I ran for city council and got elected, and I had no experience whatsoever. And then things didn't work out quite right. I had to resign. And then later on, I applied for the commission here, and again, I had no experience.
Yeah.
So to me, those questions are irrelevant.
I just kind of figure, life experience is the best experience for anything in the world. I mean, yeah, education, don't get me wrong there, that's great, but street smarts help a lot. And just seeing what's going on, you know, it is an experience. And that's a good way for me, I think, to serve your community is just knowing what's out there. The reason I want to be on the commission, hearing from the chair, Sarah, about what you guys do and what you guys are involved in. I think I would like to do that. I'd like to be part of that and part of growing Lakeside, changing Lakeside, whatever that entails. It just seemed like it'd be something that I would be interested in, that I could get and bite my teeth into.
Thank you.
Randy, do you have a question?
Well, I did like the first question, and some of the other questions might be redundant,
Make
but
a good question.
it was good about telling us briefly about yourself and give us a little idea. Just from a personal person, the verbiage and things. But I had an office, not a regular meeting interview here. But being on the commission, being on the planning commission, this requires some dedicated time that we count on that person that we had, you know, for qualifications, just to be able to be there on a basis and have prior information, which you give all the time, which you have in our community packet, to be nosy, to be out there, ask questions. None of them are dumb. The dumb questions are the ones that's not asked.
I agree with that.
We need to know the feeling of you as well as everybody here. We're all citizens of Lakeside, and it's for the good. So we can all together just say what's good for the city.
Yep.
And what comes out of it, and you're willing to do this and do
Yes.
some of the homework that needs to.
Yep.
That's good.
Part-time, I'm home all the time. When I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. Heck or high water, you know, I'm gonna have to be bleeding in a gutter someplace to not show up and do it. Or, you know, major family emergency type of situation. I'm gonna be there and I'm always early, I'm always on time, and I'm gonna stay as long as I need to stay to get the job done. And that's just who I'm always, that's why I was raised, that's who I've always been, and that's how I raised my kids.
So the pressure of being on a commission means you have to make decisions based on what is brought to you in a legal form and follow the laws.
Yeah.
And not put our personal items too far in
Yeah.
front of us. And
Yeah, you know, yeah, your personal is hard to throw aside, like with your best friend or your neighbor or whatever that you really like, and there's something going on. That's always hard in the head to put back there, but if it's a law thing, I'm sorry, that overrides personal.
I mean, it's not a 9 to 5 job.
Right, no, it's not.
We're not demanding, 40 hours a week
Right.
Of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So knowledge is power. Power helps us here to make decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so since me and you have a personal relationship, if a thing came up, would there be any sort of bias with siding with anything I have to say, or would you be? I tried to tell everybody that you just didn't don't listen to me, but
I only going to agree with you if I agree with you. Other than that, I would go, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but you're wrong.
I just kind of wanted it on the record.
I don't agree with you. No, I'm not gonna be.
That I can't sway
No.
your opinion. And
Yeah. Anybody who knows her and I, we will butt heads more often than we agree, on just personal everyday stuff. I mean, when it comes to the city stuff and planning stuff, if I agree with her, I'm gonna agree with her. If I don't, I'm gonna say, no, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. I don't care if she's my child or not.
And then, I guess I'd like to say, do you have any questions for us?
I don't really. I tried to think of something and I really don't have any questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Ask away.
Okay, a lot of the decisions we make are based on rules that have already been laid out, so you'll need to take the time to go through and familiarize.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
It's
over
still
that.
a reading.
Yeah,
I just want to know if you're comfortable.
yeah, yep, I'm up for it.
Prepared for it.
Yeah, that's the only part I'm like, oh, there's reading. But that's what you gotta do if you're gonna do it. You gotta dive in, be wholehearted into it and put in the work that you need to put in. Thanks for any job, I think, for anything.
Anybody else? have anything?
So you're related to the chairman.
Yes. Yes.
Will that anything, does that, I don't know how that looks to outsiders looking. Is there something that
We had to
is,
check with the city attorney.
Yeah, we had to child check with the ethics committee before I even turned in my application to make sure
It,
that was
it would be
okay.
different if one of us were on council because council is Penny's boss, but, we did.
And like I said, she's not gonna be able to sway
She
my
doesn't like
decisions
it.
in any way. Like I said, if I don't agree, I don't agree, and I'm gonna agree with whoever, or come up with my own idea if I have.
You're gonna be able to, like, if it gets really heated, just be able to table it and put it away for later.
Oh, yeah.
She should, I would hear it from her later. And
This is business, personal, you separate the two.
right now, I tell her things that are going on and she highly disagrees with half of what I say and thinks that she other ways. I don't think she's agree.
That's me.
I do have a question though. In this, and it's a little burden.
Okay,
No, you're fine.
Just the idea. I know when there are two people, is there something ethical about having a mom and a daughter talk about things after or discuss? Is
It's not
that
gonna
allowed?
it won't happen.
Is
I
that
would love it.
allowed?
I think as long as it's not a forum situation,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be no different than you messaging me or Carl messaging me.
it's not a,
Yeah, usually they'll end up just telling her, can you believe what your neighbor did, or,
but I called or I emailed DLCD and asked them as well, and they said that there's no, that absolutely they can be on the commission together.
Well, I got after here, so if I go after the chair in angry kind of ways, that you're wrong and stuff, you're not gonna slap me down.
No.
knock me
Oh, I'm enjoying that with you.
Yeah.
No, all joking aside, she's my daughter when we're not in this room, and when she's here, she's Madam Chair. Plain and simple.
she's been calling me.
There will be there will be no, personal, hey, Sarah, can you believe what Randy said afterward? Oh my gosh, afterwards, no, there's not gonna be any of that. I totally believe in you keep business and personal separate, work and home separate as much as you possibly can. As long as it doesn't interfere, it's not gonna happen.
You do something else.
Yes,
Not in the same neighborhood.
yeah, it's over here on Claremont here.
I have not lived with her since I was 7.
And believe it or not, moving here, I thought, oh, great, well, I'll be able to see my daughter, my grandchildren more. I see them just about as much now as I did when I lived 2.5 hours.
That was that way.
I'm a bad child. She's not a bad child, because I can say, hey, Sarah, I need your help, and she.
Anybody else with her? We need her to step out to speak, or can we make a motion or?
Just might, yeah, just might be.
Make a motion, do we approve her?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that was a motion made by Charlene, seconded by Carl, the unanimous aye. Yeah, so now they will take your application and our recommendation to the city council, and city council will then at that point approve it or deny it. It's up to them, they're our boss.
Yes, they're your boss.
And you can either, I guess, stay and hang out, or you can go. You're more than welcome.
And the city council meeting is going to be next Thursday, May 8th.
Will it get on the agenda?
Yeah, it's on the agenda already,
And do I need to
Well-
be there for it?
No.
on my draft.
Should be there.
I would say if I need to be there, if I should be there, I will be
They
there.
asked me questions.
Oh, they did, they never asked me questions.
They did.
Or no.
Everybody in town.
Okay, so let's move forward then with the public hearings section of tonight's agenda. So these proceedings will be recorded, hearings will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and the state of Oregon. The planning commission decisions must be based on facts. There is applicable approval criteria listed in the staff report. These are the criteria the planning commission must use in making the decisions. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards the criteria or other criteria which you believe applies to the decisions for ORS 197.763.5. I don't know what that means, but failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city and parties involved an opportunity to respond to the issue would preclude an appeal based on that issue. You must comment either in writing or verbally during a public hearing in order to have standing for appeal. Any proponent, opponent, or other party interested in land use matter to be heard by the planning commission may challenge the qualification of any commissioner to participate in such a hearing and decision. Such challenge must state facts relied upon by the party relating to the commissioner's bias, prejudgment, personal interest, or other facts for which the party has concluded that the commissioner will not make a decision in an impartial manner. The hearing will proceed with the staff report, followed by the applicant. After that, the public hearing will proceed with the speaker's cards received for the opponents, and then any neutral parties. The commission may ask questions after each speaker. The applicant will be given a final opportunity to review the testimony or evidence. Any written testimony provided to the City of Lakeside Planning Department concerning the public hearing item were required to be received by the city at least 2 hours prior to the start of this meeting to be distributed to the Planning Commission. Written testimony was also posted to the City of Lakeside website and made part of this meeting record. In order to provide verbal testimony, citizens must sign in using the sign-in sheet on the table in the back of the council chambers prior to the start of this meeting. We ask for your address on the sign-in sheet so that we may provide you notice of the city's eventual decision in this matter, which gives you standing for appeal. Testimony not submitted in compliance with the above procedures will not be included in the record. For those that are providing testimony in person, when I call your name, you'll be invited to come up to the mic, state your name and address, and begin your testimony. If participating remotely over Zoom, I will call your name and you will be unmuted and it will be your opportunity to speak. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Once your time limit has been completed, I will notify you that this is the case and you will be muted again. And thank you for your cooperation. With those instructions about the public hearings out of the way, I would ask if any commissioner wishes to disclose any conflicts of interest, declare a potential or actual bias, or declare and discuss any ex parte contacts the commissioners may have read, heard, or otherwise received after the land use application was deemed complete. Please make some declarations.
I do.
Okay?
When I first got hold of that, written it in, and I saw some things that didn't match. I told Sharon I was gonna be able to, she said, I disclose, but I went to the house so I could see what the measurement on the building was, because some said 37, some said 38. We found out 37 is the correct answer. And so.
So you did an on-site visit prior?
Yeah. I did
Okay.
on site.
Okay. Any other commissioners?
The only thing I remember, being out there off of, the waves when I had my, Hercules, the Greek tortoise got loose and, was found, and they took it over to the, sergeant's place and kept it. It was gone a year. And so when they found it wandering on the road on 8th Street, heading towards someplace, maybe going across the street for who knows, but he was gone a year. Luckily, it was a sad moment, and then it was a elated moment when we discovered it. So they're high on my list of saving Hercules.
Right.
He's home and he's enjoying himself.
So turtle rescuers.
Yeah. Well, that's my little side story.
Okay. Carl, do you have anything to declare? And I don't have much except for I've sat with them at car shows and visited, but I've never been to the property. Okay, so Commissioner Charlene, do you believe that you can make a decision on this issue as an impartial manner? And Randy, can you make a decision on this issue as in an impartial manner?
Yes.
Okay, any one of you guys feel you need to recuse yourself, or are we okay? Okay. So, any person during his or her testimony has the right to review the substance of it. There's so much here, guys, that's right. Okay, so moving on, this is an application for a variance 2025-02 at 705 Bonneville Road in Lakeside, Oregon, last name Sargent. An application from Dennis and Debbie Sargent, a variance request for a reduction of rear and side yard setbacks to allow for the placement of an addition to an existing structure. The addition is to be 18 feet by 37 feet on the property located at 705 Bonneville. Road Assessor's Map, South 23 South by 12 West. Located, there's a lot of numbers, located at the end of Bonneville Road. A variance is reviewed against the standards contained in chapter 155.330-335 of the Lakeside Development Code. I now open the hearing for the variance 2025-02 at around 6:21 p.m. Okay, so staff report.
Okay. So Henry was going, or the project planner was going to host the meeting tonight, but he was unable to, so I'm going to do it. And so I've provided the what would be the PowerPoint presentation until I learn how to do that. So, okay. So the request, the applicant is seeking a reduction to the rear yard setback to place an addition to a structure. Structure proposed to protrude 11.5 feet into the 15-foot rear yard setback. Variance to the side yard setback to place an addition to a structure, the same structure as above. Structure proposed to protrude 3 feet 3 inches into 5-foot side yard setback. And so he's checked the criteria that it requires a PC review. So, and that he has determined that that has been met. And then another criteria that the staff found to be met based on application materials and applicants' responses. There's a picture of the site plan. And I think that it was said it was 702 and it's actually 705 Bonneville Road. But it might have been either. So anyway, but 705. So it shows how what they're going to be doing is they would like to get a variance to expand their existing shop, which is actually a feed store, and that there is a conditional use permit for the feed store, and they're just adding they would like to increase the size. The criteria: strict or literal interpretation and enforcement of the specified regulation would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary physical hardship consistent with the objectives of this code. The applicant finding is yes, the current building is considered commercial as we have an existing conditional use permit to have our licensed business Sargent's Feed located there. Staffed findings, Planning Commission should consider the applicant's finding. There is an argument to be made that strict enforcement of the setback would constitute a hardship in the form of the inability of the property owner's approved cottage industry to grow without the proposed additions. And strict or literal interpretation and enforcement of the specified regulation would deprive the applicant of privileges enjoyed by the owners of other properties classified in the same zoning district. And I guess that's criteria number 2. Applicant's finding, yes, the current building is considered commercial as we have an existing conditional use permit to have our licensed business sergeant's feet there. And the staff's finding, to staff's knowledge, there are no property owners in the vicinity that also have an approved conditional use permit to operate a cottage industry. So there is deprivation of privilege. However, strict or literal enforcement may be a burden on the approved cottage industry and hamper its ability to grow. Planning Commission should consider this criterion and decide whether it's met by the applicant. Criteria 5, I think. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. Applicant's finding, no, it is actually an improvement over visually and practically. The addition on the back will replace 3 dilapidated sheds that actually sat on the back property line. The staff found that staff agrees with the applicant's finding. Furthermore, the applicant seems to be addressing an issue of 3 dilapidated sheds being placed directly on the back property line, which meets no setback requirements, and to staff's knowledge, no previous variance exists. So in a way, the applicant's proposal cleans up the situation by virtue of new addition and improves the overall appearance of the property. And so the recommendation from staff is that staff recommends that the Planning Commission deliberate and determine whether the applicant has met all applicable approval criteria. Staff leans towards approving the variance if the Planning Commission finds that all applicable criteria have been satisfied. The fact that the subject property lies within a larger parcel also owned by the applicant may support the granting of the variance, providing the Planning Commission confirms that all applicable approval criteria have been met. Potential motions. Approval. If you could approve, or you could approve, would be to make a motion to approve the requested variance as presented and outlined in the staff report, and the Planning Commission has debated all criteria and found the applicant's application meets the criteria for granting a variance. Denial, if you deny it, whoever makes a motion to deny the requested variances as outlined in the staff report because the applicant has failed to show how all applicable approval criteria are met. And you have to say what they haven't done. We have the other, I'll read this real quick too, because it gives the actual, right, the code. And so again, the action that's requested is review and deliberation any actions on the proposed variance to the rear yard setback in order to accommodate a new addition to an existing structure. The proposed addition will encroach 11 feet 5 inches into the rear setback and 3 feet 3 inches into the side yard setback, east side property line. History of prior actions and discussions. The property owner has an approved conditional use permit to operate a cottage industry, a feed store on the subject property. The conditional use permit was approved by the Planning Commission on December 7th, 2000. Records of the approved conditional use permit is attached to the staff report. Notice was published in the newspaper. Notice was mailed to adjacent property owners on April 21st. And then there's a site plan of the additions and the existing building. So the criteria that they use is 155.333 approval criteria. The Planning Commission may grant a variance to a regulation prescribed by this code if on the basis of the petition, investigation, and evidence submitted, the Planning Commission finds that all following conditions exist. Strict, there's three, okay, so number one, strict or literal interpretation and enforcement of the specified regulation would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary physical hardship inconsistent with the objectives of this code. The staff's findings, so the applicant explains that the current building is considered commercial and they have an existing commercial conditional use permit to have a licensed business there. And the staff finds that that the Planning Commission should consider the applicant's finding, and there is an argument to be made the strict enforcement of the setback would constitute a hardship in the form of the inability of the property owners to build their business. And then the next criteria 2, strict or literal interpretation and enforcement of the specified regulation would deprive the applicant of privileges enjoyed by owners of other properties classified in the same zoning district. And the staff says that to their knowledge, there's no other owners that have an approved conditional use permit in that area. 3, there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances of conditions applicable to the property involved, which do not generally apply generally to other properties classified in the same zoning district. The applicant states that tax lot 114 fully sits within our other properties and the back and side property lines, and that they are requesting the variance to encroach upon adjoin our parcel that is assessed by Coos County as agricultural property. So the surrounding property is agricultural county property. The staff found that they agree with the applicant's finding and that the encroachment that occurs as a result of the variance and proposed addition impacts the applicant's own property because they own the surrounding parcels. And granting of the variance will not constitute a grant of special privilege in consistence with the limitations of other properties classified in the same zoning district. The applicant states that it is actually an improvement both visually and practically. The addition of the back will replace the dilapidated sheds on the back property line. Staff agrees with the applicant's finding and because the applicant seems to be addressing the dilapidated sheds in the back. And the grant of number 5, the granting of the variance will be detrimental to public health, will not be detrimental to public health. And the applicant states that no, the improvement both visually and practically, and will replace the 3 sheds that are dilapidated in the back. And the staff finds that they agree because the applicant appears to be addressing the dilapidated sheds on the back property line. And the last one is the hardship associated with requested variance were not created by the property owner. The Planning Commission should consider whether this criterion is met. The subject property is special in that it's an island amidst of another property owned by the applicant. Applicant may also address this criterion during the hearing for Planning Commission's consideration as to whether the need for the variance was self-created. And then the variance request is a minimum variance that would alleviate the hardship. And the requested variance would allow to encroach on the back in the setback requirements, but the construction would remain within the parcel. And the staff finds that the Planning Commission will have to consider this criterion. Another option is to address the situation is to perform a lot line adjustment to be able to accommodate the new addition. Planning Commission will have to decide which is the minimum action that would alleviate the hardship from the staff's perspective, the variance is likely a lower magnitude change over permanent alterations of a property line that would involve a new legal description for the property and filing with Coos County Deeds and Records. Staff are of the opinion that a variance is the minimum action that would alleviate the hardship, but Planning Commission should discuss and debate this criterion. And no order of the planning criterion 155.334 period of validity. No order for the Planning Commission granting a variance shall be valid for a period longer than 6 months unless such permitted use is established within that period. Or a building permit or erection of the alteration required for the permit is obtained within that period. So as long as they start substantial work on the variance is valid. And there's no financial impact to the city. And the staff's recommendation is the staff recommends that the Planning Commission deliberate and determine whether the applicant has met all applicable approval criteria. Staff leans towards approving the variance if the Planning Commission finds that all applicable criteria have been satisfied. The fact that the subject property lies within a larger parcel also owned by the applicant may support the granting of the variance, provided the Planning Commission confirms that all applicable approval criteria have been met. And then the alternatives would be that the Planning Commission may deny the variance or continue the hearing to a date certain. Furthermore, Planning Commission may formulate its own findings for which a decision is based on. And then we have the attachments, and you've seen them, which is the applications and the applications and the site plans, and it's all very well put together. There's also when the approved conditional use permit that from 2000. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, do any of our commissioners have questions for Sharon? Question?
Same questions that for Sharon or for the applicant. As far
You
as
can just-
going to the.
Just me, but the applicant will be are hitting.
You wanna wait then? Okay, so with that, can I have the applicant or applicants or representative come up and give a presentation, testimony, however you want to call it? Introduce yourself.
Debbie Sargent.
We know where you live. It's been plastered all over our paper. Okay, so kind of give us a rundown of kind of what you're wanting to do. We've heard it, but I'd like to hear it from
So we are wanting to extend an existing building and put a covered side. It would extend into the setbacks. This particular building, as shown on the pictures, is put on the corner of the lot, which is what's requiring the setbacks. It is a commercial building. We've had Sergeant Speed in that building since 2001 in operation continually the whole time. And we went through the city to get permission to do that. So it is about improving what we have. We've always used that corner of the property. It doesn't affect any others because we do have the ag land that's on the outside of that. And we're asking to encroach, but not be sitting on the property line or over the property.
Okay. Anything else you want to add real quick, or you got it?
I can't think of anything. I'm happy to answering his question.
That's the next part. So go ahead and stay up there. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
I do. As far as your business, you're actively selling farm feed. What kind of feed is it that you're doing now?
We sell sack feeds, so we don't have hay because we don't have room to store it and hay molds here on the coast. So it's all sack feeds. We are not, the kind of store that sells flea medications, or it's all sack feeds.
Serious.
So poultry feeds, goat feed, horse feed, llamas, pig food. But so it's all commercially bagged feed, wild bird seed, and other seed.
So is this business building that you're redoing? Does it going to be part of the commercial part?
It is, it extends on the back end of the commercial. Roughly half the building is used for the feed store, the other half is not, but it extends the end of the building.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so, have you read the findings of fact that were presented to you, and do you understand the resolution and the findings as proposed tonight?
The finance are the ones with the check marks.
Okay, go ahead and take a seat. Okay, so now we will be taking any testimony from those who have submitted speakers, cards, sign up. Copies of the written comments received, if any, have been distributed to the planning commission. We did not receive any tonight. Each person who requested to give testimony will be called individually. You are called upon over the phone or internet. Please state your name before beginning your testimony. If someone has made statements with which you agree, please state your name and state that you agree with the comments made. You do not need to restate the previous comments. This is also the opportunity for a member of the public to challenge a commissioner's impartiality. Do we have any proponents?
Here's sign for public testimony.
Okay, so proponents? Nope, okay, any opponents? Okay, go ahead and come up to the podium, state your name.
Robert Ward, Lakeside resident. I'm opposed to the granting of variance BAR 25-02. My opposition is to this variance application. It's not opposition to the applicant's building plans. The question before the planning commission is not whether the applicant should or should not be allowed to add extensions to their existing building. They can absolutely do that, no matter how the commission decides to. There are several mechanisms whereby the applicant can achieve this objective while also being in compliance with the Lakeside zoning code. And of those options, a variance is the worst regulatory option available. The question before the commission is whether the applicant should be granted a variance from the general residential setback standards as found in Lakeside Municipal Code 155.085 sub 3 and LMC 155.085 sub 4. The requested variance cannot be granted by the commission unless the commission elects to exceed its authority and also elects to make determinations that are explicitly inconsistent with the requirements of state law. The stated purpose of the requested variance is to permit the expansion of the existing building. The requested variance is inconsistent with approval standards, primarily because this applicant can lawfully achieve the desired outcome without a variance. Additionally, the question of whether the applicant met the standards for a variance is entirely unrelated to the applicant having previously been issued a conditional use permit for a cottage industry. Planning Commission is therefore urged to ignore all information and materials within the staff report that deal with this pre-existing permit, as none of that information provides evidence relevant to the application under consideration. Consistent with both state and local law, the Planning Commission is required to issue rulings that are consistent with the approval criteria and are based on objective factual evidence. Lakeside Municipal Code 155.015 sub A requires such evidence be, quote, reliable, probative, and substantive, end quote. Conclusions drawn from the facts must state whether the requirements of LMC 155 were met, whether the comprehensive plan was complied with, and whether the requirements of state law were met. The findings presented to the planning commissions through the staff report for BAR 25-02 do not meet these requirements. Staff consideration of whether the requirements of LMC 155 have been met are incomplete and in some respects incorrect. The consideration as to whether the comprehensive plan or state law have been satisfied is entirely absent from the staff report. On page 8 of your 50-page meeting packet, staff correctly state that quote, criteria for which a variance is judged against is in chapter 155.330 through 334 of the Lakeside zoning ordinance. The staff report then jumps to LMC 155.333 without any consideration of 0.330 through 332. Lakeside Municipal Code 155.330 sets forth the purpose of granting a variance. It is set forth as, quote, the purpose of a variance shall be to correct or to lessen such practical difficulties and unnecessary physical hardship which are inconsistent with the objectives of this code. A variance grants the property owner a permanent exemption from the local laws that apply to all other property owners. That is why this is appropriately limited to circumstances where not giving the property owner an exemption would create hardships that are, quote, inconsistent with the objective of those laws. The objectives of the zoning code are found within LMC 155.003. Neither the applicant nor staff have discussed how the reported hardships are inconsistent with any of the objectives found in LMC 155.003, and there has therefore been no evidence presented as to whether the purpose for granting a variance has been satisfied. I reviewed LMC 155.003 and was unable to identify any difficulties faced by the applicant that create a situation inconsistent with the objectives of the zoning code. The application for the commission is therefore inconsistent with the purpose of granting a variance as found in LMC 155.330. LMC 155.331 sets forth specific limitations that the planning commission must observe in granting variances and lists the situation in which a variance may be considered. LMC 155.331 sub 3 allows the consideration of the requested variance. However, the commission is required to find that all approval requirements are met before granting the requested variance. LMC 155.332 sets forth specific information that the applicant is required to provide to the commission before a variance may be considered. LMC 155.332 sub 4 requires the applicant to provide, quote, reasons for a variance being the most practicable solution to the problem, end quote. On page 23 of your meeting packet, item number 3 asks the applicant to explain why the variance is the most practical solution to the problem of not having room for the desired expansions within setbacks. The applicant's response was, quote, the back of the existing building is 21 feet 6 inches from the back property line. The proposed addition is 18 feet, and the right east side of the building is 15 feet 9 inches from the side property line, and the proposed lean-to will be 14 feet 1. The applicant's response is merely a statement of the reasons why the planned expansion cannot be accomplished lawfully within the existing lot boundary. The question as to why a variance is the most practical solution has not been addressed in any way, and neither the applicant nor staff have presented evidence that the variance is the most practical solution to the problem.
Ron, that's kind of wrap it up a little bit.
I don't believe you can lawfully impose a time limit on this testimony.
Did I not state earlier?
Mhm.
You may state so, but I don't believe you can lawfully impose that. As LNC 155.332 sub 4 has not been satisfied, the commission should deny this application. Moving on to LMC 155.333, your approval criteria. This code section states that the commission may grant a variance if there's evidence that all of the approved criteria have been met. The planning commission therefore does not have the authority to grant a variance unless all 7 criteria have been met. The application before the commission does not meet the requirements of 6 of the 7 required standards, and the commission would therefore be exceeding its lawful authority if it were to grant the requested variance. 155.33 sub 1 states that, quote, literal or strict or literal interpretation and enforcement of the specified regulation would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary physical hardship inconsistent with the objectives of this code. Again, the objectives of the code as found in 155.003 have not been considered. Staff has reported the applicant's finding for meeting this criteria as, quote, the current building is considered commercial as we have an existing conditional use permit to have our licensed business Sergeant Speed located there, end quote. This response does not describe any hardship, much less one that is inconsistent with 155.003. Staff is inexplicably opined that the commission should consider the applicant's position on the basis that applicant's business cannot grow without the variance. The assertion is false, because there are other means whereby the applicant can lawfully enact their building plan, and a great many more means by which growth of the business could be accomplished. The simplest means of affecting the proposed building plan is a lot line adjustment, which in this case is simple because the applicant owns both the subject property and both adjacent properties. Another is to merge the subject property with lot 23S12W07BC-100. Again, these lots are in common ownership. The application failed to meet this criterion. Criterion number 2 requires that strict or literal interpretation and enforcement of the specified regulation would deprive the applicant of privileges enjoyed by the owners of other properties classified in the same zoning district. For this application, this requires that the setbacks impact the applicant in a way that is different from other owners of property in the general single family zone. The applicant claims to meet the standard because the current building is considered commercial as we have an existing conditional use permit to have our licensed business Sergeant Speed located. The applicant's response does not in any way identify any privilege enjoyed by other lot owners in the zone arising from having to comply with lot setbacks for the zone. Staff has found this criterion to have been met because, quote, to staff knowledge, there are no property owners in the vicinity that also have an approved conditional use permit to operate a cottage industry, so there is deprivation of privilege. This response by staff reveals a failure to understand the standard. The standard applies to other property owners in the zone, not in the vicinity. Very few GS properties host a cottage industry, and it's not possible to understand how the applicant having an approved conditional use permit constitutes a denial of privilege. Finally, no privilege that may have been potentially denied is identified by staff. The application fails to meet this criteria as well. Number 3 requires, quote, there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved which do not apply generally to other properties classified in the same zoning district. This criterion is understood to mean circumstances or conditions that create a problem for which the variance is being sought and which can only be remedied by a variance. The applicant has asserted that they meet this criterion because, quote, tax lot 114 fully sits within our other properties. The back and side lines that we are requesting the variance to approach upon join our parcel that is assessed by Coos County's property. The exceptional or extraordinary condition that the applicant has identified is certainly atypical. However, it is not one that requires a variance to remedy it. It is in fact a circumstance that makes a variance entirely unnecessary. Unlike most property owners, this applicant can fix their problem via a lot line adjustment or by merging two lots. Staff have indicated they agree with the applicant's finding on this criterion. Apparently, staff believes that if the applicant makes a factual assertion, even if that assertion does not provide evidence of meeting the criterion, that's sufficient. Staff has also suggested that any encroachment that arises from the proposed variance is of no effect because the applicant owns the adjoining parcel. In offering this suggestion, staff has ignored the possibility that the adjoining property may one day have a different owner. The applicant has failed to meet this standard as well. Number 4 requires that the granting of the variance will not constitute a special privilege inconsistent with the limitations on other properties classified in the same zoning district. This means that if the variance is granted, it will not be a special privilege that other owners in the GS zone do not have. The applicant asserts that this requirement is met because, quote, "it is actually an improvement both visually and practically. The addition on the back will replace 3 dilapidated sheds that actually sat on the back property." The applicant is asserting that they would not be receiving a special privilege because they had previously ignored the setback requirements entirely and now want permission to have a reduced setback. The applicant's response to the standard is also not relevant to the question that was posed. Staff agreed with the applicant. Staff then went on to state there is no special privilege because in order to have a cottage industry, the applicant first had to get an approved conditional use permit from the planning commission, which they have. This is also entirely irrelevant to the standard under consideration. It's the entire variance application. The applicant has failed to meet this standard as well. The 5th standard requires that the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and or welfare or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. Because the standard involves the absence of a condition from an evidentiary perspective and it cannot be proven conclusively, therefore the absence of evidence of potential detriment of the public well-being should be taken as sufficient evidence that the applicant has met this one standard. Standard 6 requires that the hardships associated with the request for variance were not created by acts of the property owner. This means the variance is not to be granted in instances where the problem to be solved through variance results from an act of the property owner, whether the current property owner or past property owner. It has to be some factor intrinsic to the property itself. Staff has opined that this standard has been met because the subject property is special in that it's an island in the midst of another property owned by the applicant. This assertion by staff, while factually correct, is irrelevant to the standard. The problem that the applicant seeks to solve is to add an expansion of a specified size to an existing building, and the existing building is too close to the lot lines to allow expansions of the desired size without violating setbacks. In other words, the variance is needed because the existing building is located too close to the lot boundaries. This is a building that an owner of the subject property, whether current or previous, placed in its current location. This is by definition a hardship that is created by an act of the property owner. The applicant has not met this standard. Standard 7 requires that the variance requested is the minimum variance that would alleviate the hardships. This means that the hardships cannot be alleviated by any means other than the precise amount of variance requested or granted or approved. If the property owner has practical means other than a variance to alleviate their hardship, then the minimum variance required is none. That is the case with this application. Staff has offered that this standard has been met, even though the applicant has at least 2 other methods of carrying out their design plan while observing the setbacks, because they believe that a variance is, quote, likely a lower magnitude change over permanent alteration of a property line that would involve a new legal description for the property and filing with Coos County Deeds and Records. The process being described there is having a surveyor come out and create a plat map of the new lot boundaries, and then recording that with the county. This indicates a lack of understanding of this criterion. The question is not whether a variance is a lesser or lower magnitude solution. Question before the commission is whether the variance requested is the minimum variance necessary. As no variance at all is necessary, the applicant has not met this standard either. In summation, the applicant has met only one of the 7 mandatory standards for approval. Consequently, the planning commission did not approve any of the requested variance, at the same time observe the requirements for approval under both state and local law. State and local law requires that the commission's determination on an application before it be made based on factual evidence related to the standards of approval, and that the commission adopt finding of facts for their decision. The staff report provided to the planning commission does not include a set of findings that are sufficient to support any decision, and does not meet the requirement that evidence be, quote, reliable, probative, and substantive. Accordingly, the commission may wish to adopt the evidentiary findings that I've provided here as the basis to issue a denial. Again, I urge the planning commission to deny application VAR 25-02, and I wish the applicant success in moving forward with their expansion plans under an alternative mechanism.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for?
I do. Now, you're not one of their neighbors, what made you come and do this?
When I read through the packet for this planning commission meeting, I made the assessment that the commission was not being well served by staff. There is no reasonable basis to believe the planning commissioners would be on top of all the regulations and the process in and outs. And it's entirely appropriate for you to rely on staff to support you by digesting this and giving you sound information. And when I read the staff report for tonight's meeting, I concluded that that had not happened.
Just out of curiosity, how come you didn't submit it earlier so that we all would have a copy of it?
I did not submit this earlier because it wasn't available. It took a number of hours to work on this, much longer than it took to read it.
And I'm interested in having a copy of it later.
Certainly.
Any question?
No.
Randy? Okay, does staff wish to respond to any of the testimony received?
I didn't prepare any, I'm not the one who prepared the staff report, and so I'm probably not the person to,
And Henry's not here.
and Henry's not here, he was
Okay.
able to.
Go ahead now and take a seat. Ron, okay, does the applicant wish to respond to any of the testimony received? You want to come up and say a rebuttal?
Right, I'm Dennis Sargent. I wouldn't know where to begin. We've been there since '93. The usage is the same usage. We've been using it that way for a long time.
And the buildings all existed when we bought it,
Yeah,
and
the building,
exactly where they sit.
I think that was the question I was going to ask. Those three sheds were there when you purchased it, or if you bought
yeah,
them?
everything was there.
So the buildings that are dilapidated, you're taking that away,
Right,
clean slate, and then replacing it with a updated, modern structure.
correct.
Is it bigger than the 3 buildings, or is it by very much?
It's taller. It's
So it's
the
not
height of the,
Coverage of
but
square feet is taller.
yeah, the square footage probably wouldn't change much.
So why did we think of a variance And if I'm going to beyond what I should be doing, I can stop. On a variance, it sounds like that. I've always been leery of variances. The word variance in a commission. It's basically giving permission to do something illegal. That's exactly what a variance really is. You can challenge them that I could. So giving you this information may not do nothing right now, but apparently the last person who we were debating right now, it was mentioning a lot of things, but I was a little muddled as to what is your option? Would it have been better that if we didn't really need a variance, is that we just did like a lot of people here in town, just get a building permit and the specs of anything over 10 by 20 and have it built, just like all the other buildings, old buildings and structures that are here, without having to go through a variance? Is there a necessary call for a variance? Does the state say, Dennis, you can only have this with a variance? Or where did the term variance come from in your mind that you felt that we needed a variance?
The best understanding to get permission to encroach on the setback.
It was the least objectionable way to get the improvements on that building.
One of the hardships that exists for us that probably doesn't exist for others is because of the designation for the county for the ag land. If we were to change that with a lot line adjustment and make that residential, we have to pay 5 years of taxes at a residential rate when it's not been residential and we don't intend to use it as residential. And
So commercial, it's a commercial building, right?
commercial building, but not commercial property.
But
If
if
it
you
were
want,
commercial property, it wouldn't need a
We wouldn't
setback,
need it. We wouldn't need it. We need it set-
so it's,
which is the other hardship that most people wouldn't. face.
when's the last time you pay for your city license every year, right?
Yes,
Right.
we have a current city business.
Then the conditional use permit was from the original time you were there.
When we put the feed store
So
in,
you want a conditional use permit for the addition, or is it a variance that you look?
They want a variance so that because they're intruding on the setback.
In the backyard setback that we have for residential, which is 15 feet.
one of the other difficulties that we had to explore was where the back line was. If it had been a side line, it would only require 5 feet, but it's the back. And most properties in Lakeside, the narrow side is the front. Well, that's not true in our property. The front is where our front door faces up the hill at the neighbors. And so our back line was determined. I don't know how, but it doesn't match most of the city property.
That's true. Because if you look at their site plan, we had that difficulty of trying to figure out what was typically the short line is your front line, and then they would have fit. And that's why we had to do the variance because,
With a bunch.
yeah, because
So
of
we
the
didn't tweak it anywhere to fall into the,
Yeah, there's nowhere to tweak it. I mean, we're kind of stuck right there.
compromise the size a bit that brings it in. I'm just trying to get out of the, how far out the,
You know. If you don't grant a variance, we can't expand that building. And we're back to old dilapidated sheds. And the lean-to part is just to, I mean, we've used it for parking since '93. We just want it covered.
And I don't think the lean-to falls under anything. It's not an enclosed building. It's just a roof. Like you even need, I don't think a building permit to add a fee.
Are you putting electrical in and all this stuff in this new building?
Just an addition.
I don't think with, at this point, I don't know if we're gonna do any electric work, or if we do have to go through committee.
Does it currently have electric, sewer, water, any of that?
No, well, it has electric.
That can only be done if it's put in with some sort of variance.
Right.
One thing too, just to point out, I've always found that the 15-foot setback was so that fire department can access back into the building. And unfortunately, we have a lot of different kinds of health is ridiculous, but in talking with them, you know, because one thing that I was going to suggest that they put an easement on the outside of the property line. You know, behind them.
An easement from their own property to their property?
Well, yeah, from their own property line from the back line.
They could just punch a road in that would give access to the building. They don't even need an easement.
They already have it.
And I don't see a problem with
There's
that.
access to the fire department, get back there, no problem.
Because I was gonna ask that too, is how much, after you measure this out, what is the buffer footage? I mean, is it still gonna be 5 feet, 10, I mean, what's the footage around the building?
The back, we call it the runway, but when we did a burn to learn on our old house 10 years ago. And that's where they parked all the fire trucks.
So they can get in there.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's where they parked fire trucks for.
It's a big lot.
I've never been down there, so I've only seen aerial when I was looking
So
up.
this has nothing to do with any swampland
Mhm.
or
No.
anything that's going to cause, you know, the Oregon
The wetland, yeah.
wetland people to come in and
No,
scream.
Maynard, you come down and
Yeah.
Not anywhere near a wetland.
and your agricultural is not, doesn't have any designated wetlands anywhere close to the property line,
There's some back in the back acre,
but not near the building.
nothing
Okay.
near.
So my concern is this moment without having the full information. I wish Henry would have
Yes,
been here to give us a rebuttal to Rob's. Because what it is, verbiage, you know, instead of just on paper, to be able to address this. I feel myself, it is out of my league to give you a proper yes or no.
We're not even there yet.
That's good. At this moment, that's what I'm at.
Okay, well, we're not even there yet. So, anybody else have a rebuttal question, I guess? Another question, that's your first.
You know, well, a lot of these. Would have submitted this sooner. It's really.
yeah, I have just one thing to add.
Do you have a response?
I have, that Mrs. Sargent came to us and asked what was the best alternative.
And that was the one that,
And that was what Henry advised.
so was Henry that advised the variance? Okay, perfect, okay. I need to know who issued this, if it was Krista or you or, yeah.
No, they came, they asked, and
Thank you. I think that kind of answered Randy's question about who recommended the variance. So that's helpful information. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, anybody else have anything to add or we ready to move on?
Now, when we get in our discussion.
So now is the decision to close or leave open the public hearing and or close or leave open the written record. Now is the opportunity to discuss closing the public hearing and the written record. Yeah, you can proceed. And the planning commission may elect to close the public hearing this evening. If the planning commission has additional questions that it wishes to hear additional evidence on, the commission may elect to either continue the hearing to a future meeting or may close the hearing but keep the record open for a set period of time within which the public may submit written evidence and argument. Does the planning commission or staff see any reason to continue the public hearing or hold the written record open to allow for additional testimony? Okay, so I'd like to close the public hearing portion at 7:14 p.m. Now I gotta read the fancy part. Pursuant to ORS 197.763, section 6, section E, the applicant has the right to submit final written argument that will be included in the record. We close the record though, right? The submission must be made within 7 days and may not contain new evidence. The submission must only contain written argument, and if the submission contains any new evidence, the planning commission will reject the new evidence and only consider the written argument. The applicant also has the right to waive the submission of final written argument. Let me keep going. This is a lot. If the applicant does not waive the submission of final written argument, the commission will not be able to make a final determination on the application tonight. Does the applicant wish to waive the submission of a final written argument? Is there anything else you want to put on the record, or are you guys good? Okay. So then we can skip all of that, because that's just no, yes, okay. The applicant waives its right to submit any final written argument or records. The planning commission may now discuss and deliberate on this matter. Now is the opportunity for the planning commission to discuss and deliberate on the testimony and evidence concerning this item. Would any commissioner like to open the discussion on the item? Okay, go for it, Carl.
Okay, first of all, we've always been talking about that, we gotta get, Lakeside into the proper regulations.
Yes.
And doing things the right way.
Right.
Okay. I believe that, this here could be done by a lot line adjustment. And it wouldn't require a variance. Okay, the thing is that I get is that Rob gave a rebuttal. Rob used to be our technical support. You know, he used to be our staff. And he is probably the best one around the area. He knows the laws and rules one by one. He's telling us what was right and what's legal and what's not legal. If you read the testimony in the staff report from, what's his name? Henry, you can see that most of his comments are judgment. They're not related to any technical issue or technical law or technical regulation or anything else. It's mostly all judgment. And it's, oh, because they've been doing this for a long time, that must be okay now to do it, continue it. You know, that type of thing. So, I believe that, you know, a lot line adjustment seems like to me like the easiest way to get around this. I don't know what the second option was.
I think the second option was some kind of, what did he say?
Consolidate would mean that
Consolidate,
they could,
combine two of the lots together to give them the room.
Yeah.
Part of the
That's
agricultural.
basically a lot line adjustment.
Yeah, but I kind of it'd be more like the residential property. Merging as part of the agricultural property. And then that would involve also then changing the taxes stuff with the county, and I could see that as like a big, huge. Pain in the butt.
But I agree with what Rob is saying, that 6 out of the 7 items are not. Huh?
Oh, okay, first of all, we can't say that Rob is exactly right on everything, but
No.
we can't say also that our guy isn't exactly right on
Right.
everything. So it looks like this is gonna be an issue that we're probably gonna have to address, that's going to be definitely one we're gonna have to go into and really take a look at. Not necessarily something. Because this is gonna be a big undertaking, I'm feeling, and the fact that this was last minute thrown at us without us having.
Well, wasn't really thrown at it, but we had the proper.
I realize that, but normally on rebuttal, don't they submit something
No.
written?
No,
They can appear in person, they can. have
Well,
written
yeah.
testimony, they can appear by Zoom, they can call in. It just says that if anything was written, it had to be submitted to us 2 hours before the meeting. So it's only, yeah, I mean, you can get stuff and it can be short notice. And we have had all this information for at least a week now.
More dramatic.
Yeah, it's been a little.
we do try to do a
Really
week
good at
before.
giving us. So I have a question. Have you guys,
Rob,
this is for me, have you guys looked into the cost of what it would take to adjust your lot line or anything like that?
It takes a survey, right?
Which is about $1,300. Or take.
Spouse last time.
You have a big chunk of property.
Wasn't it a lot line though? It wasn't like full survey.
Well, and part of the problem is getting a surveyor, we used to use Jerry Epler, who's retired.
And as the Brock survey now, Coos Bay, it takes them like a month, month and a half, 2 months to get our job.
Right. So we were hoping to use
Well,
the,
and it's not just gonna be one side of the property, it's gonna be 2 sides of the property. If you count the lean-to part.
this,
And the property is zoned residential.
5.7 acres is residential.
If it was commercial, you could push it right up against your lot line.
But then we checked because the conditional use permit therefore deems the building commercial, but the property is residential.
Yeah, my house is kind of weird like that.
That's the kind of so far out.
Have you thought about maybe seeing if a portion of that land that your business sits on, if it could be rezoned? And then you would need a variance because you could push right to the property line.
You mean rezone from residential,
Yeah,
that area of town is zoned residential.
We got the colorful map that
Mhm.
showed everything.
I would think that you could rezone because you're so close to that food area and the pot store that maybe you could.
But to zone, it would be a commercial island in a residential.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, this. Part of our problem is we can't go the other way because Bonneville Power easement is on the other
Right, and
side.
then they gotta have about 30 feet.
50
Is
from
it
the
15?
center line.
I'm trying to think of a way that we can approach this. Well, I mean, okay, if you wanna get weird about it, their property is probably equally as old as mine. My house on Seventh Street is 2 feet off the property line on the side and 10 feet out of the alley. I don't have to meet the setback.
Not like that. A long time ago, a surveyor in the area did all the properties 10 feet off. We found that out when I lived
And
up there now.
technically, my house is commercial grandfathered residential. That's what I'm wondering if there's a way. Because, I mean, you've been using that piece of property, that section, for your business for what, 25 years? And I don't see how, I mean, it's never, you haven't used that portion as a backyard. You haven't used it as a side yard. I'm just thinking there's gotta be
There's no way.
a simple way of doing this.
Um,
And I don't know if I agree with Rob or not, because he kind of irked me, but, I don't know if a variance is the right way or not, like what Carl says, but I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, our city planner, who I've worked with personally, who's actually usually pretty right about things, he recommended the variance. So I'd like to go think that maybe he is on to something.
How soon,
No, you're okay.
I was curious, what is your timeline? Give me a sort of,
Well, we were hoping to finish this by July.
And we filed the application. March
Mm,
4th, I used the wrong application. I used the variance for a sign.
It's happened to us all the way.
Right.
you're gonna throw out all the other stuff away, have
And
it hauled away. So if you did it like the destruction, it'd be gone, you wouldn't even know something was there, is that right? It's not gonna be just thrown up in the back.
Right.
yeah, except we wanted to do it right.
We appreciate
And they
that.
want to do it when it's summer. They want.
Yeah, the summer's starting to come up, I've had various issues here before where they've talked about it, and I've been going here on my 5th year, and they're still talking about it. And we did all this
Mhm.
public and all this stuff, and it was,
Why we came
it was
first.
really wearing, and it was just like that. So I mean, they stretched it, but it didn't give us impediments to rush. So if there is this need and the Henry, who has discussed this with our planner, director actually, has given us this type of information. I would love to see a clash between Rob and Henry
WWD stuff.
and be here at Target Mission. But the thing is, and Carl's saying, is these kinds of steps, we want to do everything that's right so that you don't have to fix up. We don't want to, we're not trying to be hard asses on you in any way. We want to be as transparent on the thought that what we say doesn't cause you any grief after being it all done, coming in on you.
Well, that's why we came to the city back in March to,
Yeah, you've been doing your due diligence.
We asked for advice. We filled out the paperwork. We brought it in to make sure we did it right. Asked what else we needed to know, do research.
So Rob brought up the fact that in the future, somebody else could own it and we'd have to deal with it. This is gonna be morbid, but if case of accident, you have somebody in your will to take over the property, correct?
Yeah.
So it's not just gonna like go up on the market and then we're gonna have a fiasco with property line fights and.
Who lives in town, owns his own little house, is the one who will take it and live in it.
So it's not just gonna go up on the market and then we have a fight after somebody develops the agricultural property or something or
No.
weird things happen.
It's a trust. Lived in town
I didn't mean to get personal, I just.
for years now.
I'm trying to address everything in my head that Rob had stated, and that was one of the
it's a 10-acre parcel, 10-acre
things.
group of parcels, and this is in the middle.
Yeah, and I know your property is down in like a hollow
Yeah.
and there's no houses directly around it.
You know,
Yeah,
Okay, but if you grant the variance,
yes.
okay, and it's close to the property line, what happens if they sell the other property?
Well, that's why I was gonna say, up to it's 10 years. They go and they put an official easement around that. So that there's a setback of what that you can't put buildings.
Have you gotten the property surveyed in the past? How far in the past? 10 years, 15 years?
20, 25.
But you know where your pins are.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't think to adjust your property line, you would have to have another survey since you have a survey on record.
There's no, when we surveyed last, it was when we added 2 acres. The Deal Creek goes.
Okay.
So the actual survey of the half acre with the house, I don't think has been done since.
But you bought it.
Yeah, 93.
But the markers are still there.
I haven't seen any markers.
They're probably in the
They
dirt.
can dig those.
Yeah,
It's just a piece of rebar with a cap on it.
yeah, and that many years,
No, trust me, they're still there. They're just probably in the ground somewhere. That's why I'm wondering if you look into doing any property line adjustments, so many feet, if your survey, since you know where the pins are and you are the surrounding properties owners, if you would even have to do a survey.
to make the county happy.
You have
They don't
to.
have to be a survey, and You're talking a month, 2 months down the road.
Yeah.
And then have to pay all the taxes. I mean, it sounds like that part will put them to work.
And then it's not gonna change it.
Yeah.
And we believed things would go through, right? We're doing it right. So we have a contract.
And you probably.
And we
the
bought
deposit on
material.
things.
So we have a huge investment.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I hope that kind of a big load.
That always is.
Or probably so light or
There-
just adding on the back.
What you would think is a minor thing is in my work, it's usually the one thing that will stop a project. I've had a project stop before because there was a retaining wall installed 20 years ago and it halted all production of everything. So little tiny things matter, unfortunately. Okay. We want to keep discussing, or do we want to make a motion, or how do we want to do this? We can make a motion to,
I make a motion to grant the variance
well, I was gonna say grant or deny variance and have them seek, an alternative route, or do we want to keep discussing further?
I make a motion that we grant the variance.
Is that your official motion?
Yeah.
It is. State your name and make the motion.
Colleen Higgins, the motion that and there you go.
There's your cheat sheet, so
To approve the request variance as presented and outline staff report and the planning.
okay. We have a second. I don't know, I mean. Anyway. Am I allowed to make seconds? Because I don't see a problem with it. I'll make a second to grant the variance. Just because I don't see it as, another alternative really. So I will second Charlene's motion and I will take it later. Okay. Can I get a vote?
In favor, aye.
No,
I,
Needed neither or.
okay. But does that pass as an either or it's 2 against 2? How, I mean,
What is it?
so we have 2.
What do you call when someone doesn't want to vote yes or no?
abstain.
Abstain.
Or abstain?
So we have 2 yay, 1 nay, 1 abstain, sustain, whatever.
I do have,
And
The
that's,
reason-
so the abstain would be that, it's no vote, and so it would be
It's a
2-1,
time.
2-1.
You'll need to give a reason. I understand. I will take it over again. Okay, so that's 2 in favor, 1 against, 1 doesn't count, correct? Okay, so that passes the variance.
Follow me.
I see a whole lot of Facebook fallout later. Good thing, yay. So we'll grant your variance.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sorry,
I mean, I do see what Rob was talking about, but I'm gonna go off the word of Henry, our planner. And say if that was his recommendation, then that's gonna be my recommendation. I trust Henry, so, okay.
follow them.
So with that being said, motion. That's it. I go back to the beginning, you guys don't have to be out more unless you want
But this is so fun.
to. Glasses, and you notice my mom was like, I am out of here, but.
I appreciate it and
It will be in.
Thank
I'm
you.
improving and I'm glad Hercules is doing okay.
can I come over and visit sometime?
Yeah,
Good.
we don't have turtle food.
It's all right. I have, you got world, wild bird seed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have,
The bears got into my last one and he just went right up to the count, porch, went
Yeah.
woke open the can,
Because it's sweet. and-
stuck his head in there, wouldn't move, and I had to get out there and knock him out.
Okay.
I'm just glad we have a feed store.
I've never been there. I should go there with, farm animals in my yard.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Put some more in that bar, that cement.
You can come at feeding time.
Well, I got
Yeah,
like chickens and rabbits and cats and dogs and parrots and birds and foxes.
That's where you get your.
But Dennis,
I I'm cheap.
say what?
we need to put some more ads out.
We're working on that, but right now that we're so crunched in on space.
I hear
We,
you.
And what started this mess is the roof needs to be fixed.
yeah,
Right,
roof needs to be
and
replaced.
it doesn't have a proper moisture barrier, so if we don't replace the roof. Feed won't hold in there well,
Yeah.
because it doesn't do well with moisture.
Again,
But we
that's-
decided, well, if we were gonna invest in a new roof, then what made sense were these other things.
No, I get
I
it.
ran a feed store for a few years.
They gotta get this-
I know.
Parent feed in Reedsport, like, operate out of their garage, they've been using this.
It's almost the same setup.
Yeah, pretty close.
It's very similar.
Okay, so I.
I'm giving you
Thank you.
time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I have item 7, which is report and discuss item. Is there anything we want to discuss? Yeah, report and discussion, planning commission discussion, report discussion. We do, right here, section 8 is planning commission calendar, we have one June 5th, July 3rd, August 7th. Unless I would, I still keep asking if I can get a survey, so we can start working on that again.
Well, we
I
have
thought
this.
you did it, didn't you do?
Oh, yeah, that survey.
That's like, did you do the survey?
You know what, I've been scatterbrained this week and I really accidentally printed like 5 copies of this while trying to print out my emails and it's all. So I've been.
There it is. A lot of them are very concerned.
Well, I would hope that they were. But
Here was the. They were looking at across the street from 20%, and then Park Avenue by the wastewater, the airport was 14. So you got 20 for, you were saying,
Yeah.
16 for the water plant, and then 14 for the.
What? Well, I was on, north side.
Take it some way, I thought would have been just.
We know why that was put there, and I asked Kristen to remove it, and she released the survey before she got to built with a new one. So I was telling people on Facebook, just ignore that and don't click that button, because that was a stupid idea.
Okay.
I would like to get maybe a special meeting so we can. We just need a definition of what we need by temporary, and we can take the survey and our recommendation. We don't have to make a decision on place, and we can hand it over to the council.
Yeah.
Be like, this is what the town wants. These are our 3 recommendation spots. Here's our definition of temporary overnight camping. See it.
The question is, why are they?
If you wanted to,
The thing is,
I do think since we have to work that. Survey. Manner. Which is just like temporary.
Yeah, right.
Fit, done, better. Right?
I don't know.
And leave it to the council. First, it has to get the line. That's what I wanna do. But do we need to?
Let them. That's what we thought.
That's what I wanna do, but I don't know if we need to have a meeting to make that decision and figure out the manner and then hand it over.
it'd have to be on the, you'd have to have a meeting because it'd have to be on the agenda. So,
But they're holding like 5 meetings a month right now. Council.
yeah,
So we can throw it on the schedule whenever.
well, yeah, and I was thinking,
Cause that's my plan, is just to send them a recommendation, send them the survey results, give them time, give them what we are defining as manner and let them make the decision as the council. And we don't have to worry about it. We've done it. Cause they didn't ask us to write an ordinance, they just want manner, time and place.
and Sharon, we all know that
No,
you're spreading.
they're not gonna ask me anymore because Chris is not around anymore. She's the one that was pushing.
Yes, I know, cause I asked Nikki and Adam and they both said, oh, we thought you brought it to us. And I said, no, I was under the impression council brought it to us. And they're,
council
"Oh."
brought it to you. It's in the minutes. They said
They're just-
that
They just
they
want-
gave it, they voted to send it to the planning commission for the planning commission to come up with.
And I want to go back to them and be like, we're not making that decision, you pay, fine.
And so that's the thing, but so what you come up with those 3 things and then they can decide.
Yep.
That's what I want to do, but I don't know if we need to have a meeting to make that decision. Or if I can just say, hey, Sharon, tell them 7 PM, 7 AM, give them the survey and just say,
Or put it on to our next agenda.
yeah.
It would have to be on,
Done soon.
but you
Put it on the
need to
agenda
have,
for next year.
Yeah, next March after leap year on a Tuesday at 3 AM.
well, you can have,
Third equinox.
When the moon is traveling past Mars.
we may not have as many meetings this month. We meaning the city council.
Agenda, so we can get done.
Well, next month, do you want it, or did you want a special one, or on June 5th, we do have another hearing. For conditional use permit.
Is that the one on Kiera?
It's
No.
for a, air, bed and bre- or,
Airbnb.
yeah, vacation rental in the recreational residential zone.
Is it the same one that started the whole argument the first time?
No, that was general single family, that's,
What
Yeah,
happened to
but-
that?
I think
Yeah.
they're still figuring out, we're waiting on that.
Well, if it's anything like Willie Smokes does, they'll just do whatever they want.
yeah, that's what they do. But we have, so on that, we still do have to know what we want to, that could be another thing we add to the agenda. We do need to figure that out because I want to either issue business license to these people
Yeah.
that are existing.
Oh, there are already existing Airbnb.
Yeah,
Okay, so they're
Is
kind
what-
of grandfathered in.
well, this one, they're an existing, but they're in the recreational residential. And so that one was,
You know, one thing about.
okay,
You all
but
got this report, don't you, from Crystal?
Yeah.
I haven't read it, I don't know what it says, but, huh?
Verbally good.
no,
Instructions.
it's a like her thesis or something.
Yeah.
She put a lot of work into
I
it.
read it, and I.
I thought it was really well written.
It was.
That's what
The author
Think about
a little too.
Okay, so
what about Airbnb?
if we can just figure out manner quickly and not be like super discussion, we can get it done before the thing.
60.
I think we could get it. Let's go ahead and put it on the agenda before the hearing.
They don't do that.
We already have time. We have our locations.
Well, right now,
We
it's
just
not
need
allowed
to
in,
figure- I don't think it's that. I want to get this
and we
done.
have like half a dozen.
Okay.
Because I get emails and text messages every day asking what,
And
and I would like to.
and I know my wife would be very upset if the house next door to us turned into an airport.
You know, what's really interesting,
All these different people.
Can we do that?
We're gonna put it on
Works at a.
the fifth.
a really nice.
For June.
On Airbnb.
I don't think.
And they have a problem.
Okay. Before the,
Stuff like that.
The proposed time is 6.
So, you know, I think
that's 2 hours. Let's do the conditional use permit first.
Only on Wednesdays every week on
And they don't.
months that end with S.
Okay.
I'm gonna read this. Talking about people who were.
I don't care about that.
They have enough. Oh, be simple. HISS.
Simple.
We just have to have a place for people to go. We just have to have it on the book.
10 minutes before the meeting. If all we need to work out is manner and agree to send it to council.
Okay, so guys, think about the manner.
Just the
Explain what manner.
Okay, before our June 5th meeting, we need to figure out our manner for the camping ordinance. What it is, like, you can only stay for overnight, temporary, or whatever. We need to figure that out. And we'll get it on paper before the hearing on June, and send everything to council and let them do it. Think we can do that?
No.
I think so. I have confidence.
We want to have a meeting to where you're getting to have that.
No, we're just gonna do it for like 10 minutes before the hearing. I think we can do it. We all have a strong idea how we want it to go.
I know, I think. On to us.
And we'll see, we have, I think we have time figured out. We have the locations, now we just need to figure out what our definition of temporary overnight camping is. And be done. And just give it to them. Yeah, I think we can do it. We're
There are a
confident.
lot of places dealing with the homeless thing. They have set up places for them to be during the day.
At night, sleep only. Go somewhere else.
Wander the road,
Go
wander-
away and go swimming.
Wander the town, the rest of the.
What happened to the TV?
It fell asleep a long time ago. Okay, we did with that. Manner.
It did, I guess.
For June 5th.
Cause it was on. It's like, what happened?
Still on.
Yeah, you're still on.
It just went to sleep. Okay, anybody else want to add anything? Any other report and discussions or items or anything you want to add to meetings or anything? Okay, then I would like to adjourn this meeting until June 5th.
Okay.
Thank you guys.